Hello, hello everybody. I've
Hi.
pre-recorded my presentation because I'm on NHS systems and they really don't speak to Zoom. So I'm on the chat while we share my presentation.
I'm going to try and do that now. Bear with me.
Thank you.
I'm hoping this works.
Hi everybody, my name is Layla Sharda. I'm a clinical academic mental health nurse at Lancashire and South Cumbria NHS Foundation Trust. Thank you to Selena and to Ruth for inviting me to come and talk to you today. I've been doing some reviewing around expert lived experience teaching in mental health, and I'd be really grateful for some feedback. A bit of background about me is I work in an undergraduate medical education team, and I'm part of a team that has an active service user involvement programme. The policy drivers are really clear that it's necessary to involve service users in education, and there's obviously a philosophical and ethical rationale for doing so. It's the gold standard, and originally I set out to do a review just in medical education, but we found only 5 papers of variable quality. And this is a bit worrying because we've got a situation where we've got involvement that is mandated by regulators, we've got a depleted clinical workforce, and we seem to have very little evidence, particularly in the NHS context, to support implementation practice. And so we run the risk of commodifying lived experience in education potentially if we don't get this right. And so I set out to undertake a systematic scoping review. I just looked at empirical studies. I was clear to understand what the evidence was, not the ideology. And I also undertook a narrative synthesis, which was like a storytelling approach to piece together what is known about implementation in the literature. For the scoping review, I looked at all disciplines. I didn't apply any date filters, and I looked at English language studies. I included 33 papers in total. They were all qualitative, descriptive studies. Interestingly, there are not many researchers in this area because 13 of the included articles were by the same first author, and this author was also part of the research team on a further 3 studies. So that was 63% of the 19 studies identified in nursing that had the same author on the paper. Other studies were published in medicine, psychology, pharmacy, social work, and occupational therapy. 2 were multidisciplinary, and 15 of those studies were conducted internationally, with other studies originating in the UK, Australia, and Canada, so kind of the countries that you would expect. The narrative synthesis showed that safe and supportive involvement practice depends on the role of clinical educators, resources to ensure the safety and welfare of experts by lived experience, and learners, because we've got that bidirectional relationship between learners and the people who teach. We have to ensure that systems, standards, and accountability for involvement in education are there, and we still need to develop teaching methods regards to theory and practice. When we get this right, involvement in education, the literature tells us, produces a different type of knowledge, a type of knowledge that supports those future clinicians to be person-centered. It supports with knowledge translation, it produces better performing graduates, it may make mental health careers more attractive, it can be positive for the mental health of the person involved. But when we get
Apologies.
But when we get this wrong, we have offered a token effort to involve people. We can be provided not teaching, but entertainment, a good story. The lived experience can be suppressed, and that can actually have an impact on people's mental health. For learners, we can potentially be delivering voyeuristic and ethically questionable teaching that produces worse attitudes, discomfort and aversion, and that can produce defeat and pessimism. We've got to get this right. So we need to develop those teaching methods. We need to pay more attention to involvement in education and to tailor our plans so that we can maximise those intended consequences and mitigate the unintended consequences of involvement in education. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And now I'd be really keen to understand what you think needs to happen next.
Apologies, I had some problems with that. I don't know whether I missed part of that presentation, Layla.
I think most of it came through. So what I'm really interested in is there isn't a natural funder for an education project like this. So I'd be really grateful for any feedback. I can see that Ali's got her hand up and I know she's an expert in this area. She's published. So I'd love to hear what you think.
I was just going to say, I think it's fantastic. It's very timely. I think that, you know, that involvement in education, you know, we don't have ring-fenced funding for experts by experience within that field. And I think it's really, really important to, you know, kind of with the research that you've done, also just to say, I don't think the QR code remained on screen for long enough for people to capture it. So if maybe after at the end of this, Ruth can line that up to show that again for people to be involved. Thank you, Layla. I think, you know, it's something that I'm thinking about a lot at the moment, because it's not just in response to the value of what you're showing, that you showed within your presentation, but it's also to restore some kind of balance, obviously, particularly at the moment with the news about what's happening within NHSE and within the benefits system. So a lot of people who are involved in supporting training are going to be people who have that lived experience, who are probably benefits recipients, who at the moment are maybe going to be shifted back into a workforce that they can barely maintain. And so their involvement with teaching is going to be reduced, but the mechanisms to join those people up to teaching who would like to be involved are often very muddied waters. It's not very difficult it's very difficult to access where the training's actually taking place, where those lived experience voices would really benefit the quality of training about what it is to work with people who experience mental health, physical health, intersectionality across all those. And for me, as I say, it's really, really important. So as I say, please put the QR code back up again. If you want to contact me, you've got my email, haven't you?
Thank you, I do.
Yeah, please then just contact me at any time, because as I say, I'm really passionate about it, particularly in the context at the moment of the shifts that are happening, where both at the moment it all feels so negative, but there may be positives where more teaching opportunities come up. But how do we join those lived experience voices up within the NHS Constitution? Of course, it's there within PPV, but it's not always there, and the systems don't understand how to join up. A recommendation, Keith's on this call as well, and he helped develop this, is as a resource, if you want to use it, is the Psychological Professions Network Northwest animation, which speaks strongly with 3 people who are animated. That includes myself, but as it was developed in co-production on the benefits of being involved in teaching. So I can, if you email me, I'll email you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
But anyone else that would like to talk about that? Any other hands up?
I can. You know,
Great.
look, you can probably assume like what's going on with me with my age. Yeah, I have FND, so it's sort of where it's sort of neurological and mental. It's weird. But yeah, particularly what you were saying about like the benefit system all changing, really beneficial to have sort of patients feel like they're helping on support, you know, if you know what I mean. You know, that they're sort of a part of a solution towards making those being train the mental health profession, because, you know, I think miss.
Thank you. I think I'm having some tech issues. As I say, it tends to be a bit glitchy, the link between Zoom and NHS systems. So I'm sorry if I missed a little bit at the end of that. But I think I wrote down that, you know, it's about being part of the solution and it's really timely. Have I got the right feedback there?
Yeah, I think Becky's was a bit glitchy for us as well, so I think there's a bit of a delay. I think Trudy had her hand up as well next.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Leah. I'm a mental health service user and involved with the clinical psychology course at Lancaster University. They're teaching something that I'm really interested in. Because I'm on my phone, I couldn't take a photo of the QR code with my phone. So if you, if I could, I'll drop you an email, and I'd be interested in having a conversation with you about this offline.
Wonderful, thank you.
And I think Tim had his hand up as well. I'll unmute him. You need to unmute Tim, sorry.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hi, Lena. I don't know if I pronounced your name right.
You did perfectly.
Yeah, I'm a bit uncertain about. I know you showed your slides. What this is all about, really? Could you just briefly just explain what this is all about?
Yeah, of course. So we all assume that involvement is a good thing to do. But if we do it without thinking about it, we run the risk that we don't do it properly, and we do it in such a way that people don't benefit from being involved, and maybe students don't learn because we haven't thought about it enough. And so there's a risk that we are telling stories that are harmful to the people who are telling them in circumstances that are not comfortable to the people who are telling the stories. And so it's about trying to think about a teaching structure, the way that we tell stories in a way that is useful for everybody.
Is this for health professionals who are in training?
Yeah.
And people who've got experience of mental issues, being part of their training, being educators in their training. Is that what this is about?
Yeah, spot on.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I thought it was that, but I wasn't too sure, to be honest. I wasn't. Okie dokie. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, I'm really grateful for the slot and the forum today. Thank you so much. I'd be really grateful of anybody who wants to contact me. Really pleased to pick up these conversations offline. I'll let you get on with your meeting, and I'll respond to anybody who's posted in the chat. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Layla. And we'll make sure we put details so people can get in touch with you. I think it's really interesting and probably a longer conversation needed at some point about it. So hopefully you can come back and tell us a bit more. I think we've got a presentation by Sian next. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Are you there, Sian?
I am here. Good morning. Oh, good afternoon now. Good afternoon, everyone. I will just share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So today I've been asked to come along and talk to you a little bit about cyber safety. So before I was a communications officer at Arc North West Coast, I actually taught people how to stay safe online, whether that was adults or children. I went and did workshops, and so that's what the presentation is going to be based around today. just before we start, I don't want anyone to go away feeling worried. You know, we're just highlighting the possibilities and how we can reduce the risk of potential harm. So if you have been scammed or you're worried about anything, you can always get in touch with Action Fraud, and I've just put the details on there which we can circulate after the meeting as well. So today's presentation will just define what cyber safety is. I feel like it's filled with a lot of jargon, and I just want to break some of that down today so that we can, so I can give you practical advice on how to stay safer online and help you understand ways to protect yourself. I'm going to highlight the most common scams and how to identify them and practical tips for you. And there's polls and questions as we go along throughout. I understand some people are joining on the phone, so it might be a little bit difficult to get involved in them, but you can always just put your answer in the chat. Also, I can't actually see the chat. So if there's anything that I miss, if we've got room at the end, I'll answer that, or if not, you can contact me directly, or if Ruth could just get any questions at it in there, I'll get back in touch with you. So one is cyber safety. So according to the government cyber safety strategy, cyber security is the protection of computer systems and networks from the theft of damage, hardware, software or data, as well as disruption from misdirection. So to me, that's just a load of jargon. So all I've done is I've just come here, and so I think cyber security is about keeping your computer and your network unsafe. It's just, the goal is to keep your personal information, your sensitive information away from cyber criminals.
Sean, sorry, it's Pete. I just want to point out, a bit rude, I know, because you can't see, but I don't think your slides aren't moving. We can only see the main slide.
Oh no!
So we can see it now. You maybe have to just we maybe have to, when you move on, just click onto the next one.
Is it moved now?
Yeah, we can now see the why is cyber security important.
You might want to do the slideshow from the bit of do it slideshow from current. Yeah, do it from beginning or current slide, whichever one you want to do it from.
Can you see that now?
Yeah, if you want to do it from current slide on the taskbar. It's always a bit fiddly. Can you get this?
But let me just stop sharing a sec. Sorry everyone, this isn't great as I'm the communications officer, is it?
Well, you're not using your normal laptop. That's you have an exception given your day yesterday with your laptop dying.
Let's just keep going back to that one. Can you see where can you see up to?
It's no longer sharing, Sean.
Sorry everyone.
Don't worry. It was there.
Have you got a copy of it, Ruth, or not?
No, I could. If you want to send it to me.
Is this back on now?
It is.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So let's do from current slide now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you now see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes a while to come up.
Okay. And then if I move to the next slide, can you see what is cyber security now?
No. I think if you just click on each slide, Sean, when you move to it, I think that's probably best.
Can you see it now?
It just says today's presentation will. And now,
you can see it now.
It's just a bit.
Right, you know what? I'm just going to do it this way then, so that everyone can see it. I know it's not ideal, otherwise I'm not going to be able to do the presentation. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
Fine.
So why is cyber security important? So we've just gone through that. So we need to protect our personal information. We need to prevent financial loss from doing it. It helps us keep our devices safe. It ensures trust and it maintains privacy for us as well. So we just wanted to go through some security threats and key statistics. So there's 30,000 websites hacked today, and our website is actually hacked about, they try to hack us about within 1,000 individual attacks each month. So 64% of companies worldwide have experienced one form of cyber attack, and there's 22 million breach records in 2021. And every 39 seconds there is a new attack somewhere on the web. So we just got a little poll. Ruth, would you be able to put that up for me?
Gonna try. This will be fun, won't it?
Yeah. This is what happens when you try and make things interactive. I'm sorry, everyone. But if not, I've already got the answers and stuff there anyway.
Right,
So I just want to know, just on average, yeah, how many devices that you have in your home. So I can't actually see the poll, so I'm not sure whether anyone's been able to answer it. So how many devices are in your home that connect to the internet? So how many do you think that there are in a typical household, and what does that mean for cybersecurity? So if you have about 2 devices, it can help keep cybersecurity simple. If you have about 5, there's not really an issue there. 10 devices, obviously you can see that that creates more of a potential risk, and then 15, that makes managing security very difficult in your home. So the average UK home has about 10, I don't know how they got the 10.3, but 10.3 devices, which obviously poses more potential security risks. So around the world, according to Forbes magazine, a new report of 41 million homes and 1.8 billion connected devices. The average house in the US now has 20.2 connected devices. In Europe, the average is 17.4, while in Japan, they said, it made me laugh because it said only 10.3 smart devices. If you look back to even 20 years ago, I'm sure there wouldn't be that many devices there, because obviously we've got our doorbells, we've got all the different devices, Alexa, people have televisions in every room, smart televisions, so it really has grown a lot. So I've just created an infographic. I just wanted to give you practical advice just straight off the bat of how we can identify scams. So I've just called it scams because, you know, we love an acronym and ARC. So 1, the S stands for suspicious sender. So you can look for generic greetings like dear customer instead of your name. You can check for email addresses or phone numbers. Is it slightly different to the real one? Obviously, don't click on any links that are actually in the email, or use a trusted site to be able to go and identify whether it is Halifax calling, or you could have had something from Royal Mail. So you can, if you even looked in your junk box now in your emails, you'll be able to see that how many people are actually trying to scam you by using. So I'll talk to you a little bit in a minute about phishing, and it's one of the scams commonly used. So we can check, we can hover over the links. This is a lot different. This is a lot more difficult to do on a mobile phone. So if you do get a chance to have a little look on a website, or have a little look on a laptop instead, because it's still more difficult to distinguish whether a link is fraudulent or not. Look for misspellings. That's one of the most common ones, is like things like Amazon spelled right, have they spelled the website right, or have they put a 0 in instead of an O. It's just little things like that. Oh, sorry. So asking for personal information, you know, companies will, so I'll speak to you about something called phishing. Oh, actually, I can't give that away. So legitimate companies won't ask for passwords or PINs or email or text or call. So like the bank or the HMRC, so the companies won't send unexpected payment requests. Is the message with urgency, this needs to be done in 24 hours. This needs to be done at this time. They're trying to frighten you into being able to get in touch with them, but real companies would not rush you into action to do that. And is there any strange attachments that are on the email, unexpected attachments? Please don't open them, because they can have viruses in. So if you wasn't expecting an email, please don't open the attachment first. So before you even go online as well, there are things that we need to consider. So I'm not sure whether many of you use public Wi-Fi. You know, you might use this in a hospital setting, you could use it in a airport, on a train, but a big part of staying safe online is trying to stay away from it, trying to use the data on your phone instead, because being able to recognise the suspicious activity online via Wi-Fi is a big part of staying safe. So if you're not connected to the Wi-Fi, is it that your device has started to run slower? Is it have you noticed like a critical notification that's come through? Is it saying that it's unstable? These are the things that we need to look for. If it does come up like that, please remove yourself from that Wi-Fi. Also, if try not to put any sensitive passwords in while you're in there, like don't log on to your internet banking. So we all know that public Wi-Fi's are widely available, but they do come at risk and they can compromise your data. So if you can, just wait till you get home to your private Wi-Fi to be able to log on to things, even logging on to, say like if you were your social media and stuff. So then, sorry about that, and then there are, so you might see if you ever WhatsApp anyone, which is a form of social media, you'll say this message is encrypted, but your home personal Wi-Fi will also do that. It's to reduce the chance of scams. So the thing is about the Wi-Fi is that if you use it, the hardest thing is that it doesn't encrypt your message, so they can get your passwords and things like that. So you know, it is they are trying to deceive you. So they could do it looks like, say like if you were on a train, the person that was doing the deception on the Wi-Fi, they could just make it sound like the train Wi-Fi name, but you'd actually be logging onto their network. So these are just things that we need to be looking for. So then there's other things as well, so to identify whether a website is safe. So we have, you might have seen an SSL certificate, which is a secure socket layer. So it's like this little padlock that you have on a website, so you can see whether it's secure or not. And it guarantees that your data will not be read by anybody else and not be tampered with, and that you can communicate with the website. However, the padlock does not guarantee that the website itself is safe, but you've just got more of a chance of it being a more legitimate and safe website for you to purchase on and to purchase on and just to browse really. I'm just going to talk to you about a few common scams and how to prevent them. So we've just got a poll question. Please answer in the poll or answer in the chat if you feel comfortable to. So what first steps should you take if you receive a suspicious email or a message asking you to click and provide personal information? Should you click it? Should you open the attachment? So we've just gone through all this. So then can you contact the organisation directly, or can you ignore the email, just delete it without further action? So you contact the organisation directly and use a trusted phone number or website. Do not click on the link or suspect, use a trusted search engine to find the link to find the information for the organisation that you want. So you'll hear things like phishing. So this is one of the technical terms I just want to break down. It's basically an email scam. So it's where attackers impersonate a legitimate company and via email to steal sensitive information. So if you receive an email from something called like support@banksecure, that to me, I can identify that that's not Halifax or HSBC or whoever you bank with. So if the email asks you to click and log in, but the website is fake and it's designed to steal your credentials. So how can we prevent this? This is the most important thing. So we need to verify our senders carefully. We need to understand, so if we look at like the email address that I used as an example before, we can identify that that's not a legitimate address. Go onto their website, contact the customer service, and just protect yourself. As I said, it would say, oh, you need to do this in 24 hours. You don't. They're just trying to put pressure on you so that you worry about it. So again, hover over your links before you click in. Your real bank won't ask you to log in via email, and that's hard to do on a mobile to identify it. And check for spelling errors or generic reasons like "dear customer." Your banks and other organisations investing a lot of money to say this is, hi Sean, hi Pete, hi Ruth. So they, that's one way that you can do it as well. So then we can look for urgent or threatening language so that your account will be locked. So we just have another little poll question. which of the following best describes what smishing is? This always makes me laugh this way because I think it sounds cute, but it's obviously not. So if phishing is to do with email, I'm just wondering if you knew what smishing was. So would it be a fraudulent email asking you to provide personal information, fraudulent phone calls? Do you think it could be a scam with SMS? Or do you think scammers using social media platforms to collect personal data? Please feel free to put your answer in the chat. So the answer is, it's a scam where you receive a fake SMS message to provide a link or personal details. And I'm sure that some of you will have had that, and I'll teach you how to identify that in a minute. So, so you receive a text message from what it looks like. Your bank asking to click a link to confirm a payment. What should you do? So, as I just said before, don't go on, don't click the payment. They will never ever ask you to do that. So we just wanted to give you an example of what that can look like. So smishing is a fraudulent text message that tricks the users into clicking fake links or revealing information. So an example is Royal Mail says that your package is on hold until you pay £2.99. Get in touch with your local Royal Mail. You know, some people might even be expecting a package. That could be the same from Amazon as well. I mean, if you've got Amazon Prime, that's not something that it's ever come through. So I just wanted to give an example of that. So just put your account as being locked due to suspicious activity. So to gain access, please verify your identity. So if you do not, this will be locked in 24 hours and your account will be permanently suspended. Our communications team, we would never ever send an email like that out. Contact myself or Darren and just get in touch with us, and we can identify, say, oh no, that's not us, we wouldn't send that. So that's just another thing. So how can we prevent it? Just go directly, block and report the number, and then just ignore any tests that say any payment requests. Just another question for you. So we've just done smishing and now we're on phishing. So it's in, what would you expect that to be? So would it be a phone scam where they impersonate legitimate companies to steal your identity or money? A scam where people would send phishing emails? What type of scam where hackers would access your phone's camera? Or do you think it would be a scam where websites steal your login information? So it's a scam where fraudsters impersonate companies to steal your personal details or money. So it's usually a phone scam, this one, usually from the HMRC. So it's just a fraudulent phone call to pose as a trusted organisation to steal your data. So a caller pretending to be from the HMRC to say that you've got unpaid taxes. I mean, that's something I'd worry about. I think that's something most of worry about, especially when they start thinking about legal action. So that's just one thing that we need to be aware of. Just say, okay, you don't have to be on the phone to these people. Feel free to just put the phone down. Don't worry, you need to protect yourself. So how can we protect ourselves? Never share your personal details over the phone. Be cautious of urgent and threatening language. Just hang up and call the official number from the company's website, and they'll be able to confirm whether a member of their team has called you. And remember, you do have time. You do not need to answer these questions immediately for people. And then just our next question is, so create a strong password, and why should we avoid using easily guessable passwords or phrases? You know, and I understand that these things are easy to remember, but it doesn't. So it's easy to remember. It makes the password less secure and easier to crack. It makes it harder to enter on a phone, and it's a good way to keep your password short. I completely understand all these things because I'm standing here saying about safety, but I understand that it's really difficult to remember so many passwords and logins. And obviously, I've had this issue with my computer, and I'm racking my brains trying to remember it all, so I completely understand it. So it makes our password less secure and easy to crack. Let me just have another question. So which of the following lists would you identify as a strong password? And I know, as I said, I know that they're really, really difficult to remember. And as well, people say don't write your passwords down, but if you feel like you need to, please do, or use a password protector online. just make sure that you keep your passwords safe. The C was the right answer. So it's a strong password and it uses a mixture of uppercase and lowercase numbers and special characters to increase its complexity too. I just wanted to talk to you about two-factor authentication as well. So what that is so if somebody tries to log into your account, you can then have another form of verification. So it could be, okay, I'm logging into my Facebook or my social media, and it'll say, oh, it'll give you like a little notification on your phone, and I'm going to teach you how to do that in a second. But I just wanted you to be aware that that is a good way of protecting ourselves. So it's just two different, it's more like a belt and braces approach to passwords. Why is it important? So it speeds up the login process, it adds an extra layer of security by requiring both. It can make your account easier to access, or it allows you to change your password without logging in. So we can just look at all of them and see which one that you think that the two-factor authentication will be able to assist with after me defining it before. So it just adds the extra layer of security. I'm sure you would have got that from what I've said. So just if you want to factor authenticator, if you just go onto your Play Store or wherever you get your apps from, I would go with Google Authenticator or Authy. They're the popular choices and they're free. And it just helps you give that extra security to the things that you need to secure. So it could be, yeah, like I said, your social media, it could be your banking app, and it just gives you that little bit of extra peace of mind. So why should you avoid using the same passwords across multiple websites? So I understand it saves time when you're logging in, but if one of your accounts is hacked or your account could be compromised, reusing the same passwords and making the login process faster, and it doesn't matter that the passwords are reused or as long as they're long. So if one of your accounts is hacked, all of your accounts can be compromised. I mentioned earlier about breaches in data security, and that's one of them. So if say like if WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media users hacked and you use that one password for each of them, that could put you basically they could be able to log into all of your accounts and you might not be able to retrieve them, and they could start scamming people that you know as well. They could start phishing, which we were talking about earlier. And I just want to show you how important password protection is. So I've created this little infographic. So the average hacker, it would take them all lowercase passwords. If it was 8 characters, they could just do it instant. 3 seconds if it was 12 characters, and 16 seconds, 16 characters, all lowercase, that would be 2 minutes. But if you go down to upper, lower, and using numbers and symbols, so it's just the same length of password, which would be 8 characters, that would be 8 hours. For 12 characters would be 34,000 years, and for 16 characters it would be trillions of years. So you just need to make, if you can do a 16 character password, and I know that that's a lot to remember, because I mean, I'll be honest, most of mine are between 12 character passwords, but they do have a symbol and a number in too. So even if you could just move up to 12 characters, that would really increase your cyber security. So what to do if you've got the time? So you don't have to reply, verify with the company and report the scam, and forward any suspicious emails. And I just want to thank you for listening today. Sorry this hasn't been great because of what's happened with the not being able to get the presentation up properly, but I really appreciate your time today. Thank you. Stop sharing. Thank you, everyone. Is there any questions in the chat?
I've just checked my password that I use quite on my university system. It's got 16 characters. It's got 16 characters. I'm a bit smug now. I'm always putting it in wrong though. That's a problem. I put it in and then it goes failed. I'm thinking, oh, done it wrong now.
Hi, Saika.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for an excellent presentation. I think it's been very useful, very informative. Could I please request to share all those slides with us, because we can't remember everything you said, honestly, especially when it's Ramadan.
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course. Now, I understand it was a whistle-stop tour, but I just wanted to cover what I can. So what I'll do is maybe, I think the best thing that we could do is maybe turn it into a PDF, and you could use it as a use it as a resource. If you think that that would be useful as a group, I'm more than happy to do that.
Please do that. Thank you.
Yeah, who was next? I think it was Sandra next.
Hi, Sean, that was brilliant.
Hi.
Just one thing, I think Terry actually also put it in the chat about VPN. So I have VPN on mine, but sometimes when I go out and I'm out and about, it sort of like blocks other websites as well. But, you know, maybe mention about VPN.
So we were actually going to mention about VPN, but I didn't want to overwhelm people with the amount of information. But I'll write that. I'll put a slide in if you think that would be useful. And what I'll also do is I'll put links into VPNs that I would recommend as well, and just a little bit about them. That's why when I spoke about the open access Wi-Fi, I just wanted to just say if we could stay off that. But the VPN's a great idea, but I just left that out just for this presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Lynn.
Hi there. I just wanted to say thank you ever so much as well, because that these things frighten so many of us, and I think that's been really, really helpful. And I feel great now that I know what smishing and vishing is. I'm wondering if the Oxford Dictionary has got definitions for those in there.
Oh, that's great news. Thanks
I
very
can
much.
talk to young ones and show off with my new vocabulary. Thank you.
That's great news. I mean, a lot of it is, I just wanted to break down the barriers, because when you see things like that, like smishing and phishing, it's all jargon. We just need to go, okay, so that's a voice scam, that's it. And I just wanted to just give us practical tips on how to get through that.
I think Jamie's got his hand up as well now, Sean.
Yeah, hi Jamie. Oh, Jamie, you're on mute.
Certain search engines are good as well. I use a search engines called DuckDuckGo or something, and because it doesn't, it prevents any cookies from tracking you early. So certain search engines to use can also help with your privacy.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thanks very much for sharing that, Jamie. I'm just on time now, but does anybody else have any questions, or is there anything I've missed? Okay, thank you, and I'm really sorry about the technical difficulties. It's been a week. Thanks very much, everyone.
I think it's always reassuring that even if you're really, really good at tech, things can happen for you, because you are brilliant. But sometimes it just get thrown a googly, don't you? And things go wrong with your systems. So thank you for coming in and having to work from the office because your laptop was gone.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. That was brilliant. That was so interesting, and I think we are now up to our comfort break. So we shall reconvene. We are actually on time, so there is time for another question if anyone's got one. But otherwise, we'll start the comfort break early. If everyone can be back just before 1 for a research presentation from Gasham Fizo. Thank you. So if you want to turn your cameras off and then just So we've got nearly everyone back now.
I think quite a few people had to leave at once, so we probably won't have everybody back again.
Okay. Just give it another 30 seconds and then she'll get you going. Okay, shall we get going? Gash, you ready?
Oh yeah, I think I've managed to do what I needed to do with my screen, so let me just reshare again.
Well, thank you.
It's refusing, but that's fine. I'll just do it. Let me know when you can see some slides.
And nearly. Just a black screen. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we can see it now. Brilliant. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, great. Do you want me to start? Sorry.
Yes, please do. So, big welcome to you, and look forward to hearing about it.
Excellent. So yeah, thanks guys. Great to be back again, and I wanted to talk to you about metformin in epilepsy this time. Gash and I, one of the lecturers working with Professor Marzen, Professor Buchan, Pieter Schofield, and a sort of wider group who are looking at health data in epilepsy. And I suppose, again, I know that we have a lot of experience in this group with epilepsy, but you know, I think it's good to just give an overall headline picture of the condition. We're probably around 70 million people, actually, rather than 65 million around the country, around the world with epilepsy. And you'll see why I'm highlighting in America in this image, which is 3.4 million with epilepsy. Here in the UK, this is an interesting fact. There's 87 people diagnosed with epilepsy every day. So 600,000 people in the country. And the red here is the places where there's the highest prevalence of epilepsy. And then as you get more sort of blue, lower prevalences. So, and what this is telling us is amongst the 65 million people with epilepsy, actually the largest proportion, and it's actually around 70 to 80%, are in less economically developed countries. And that probably represents a factor of some of the different causes. So infections, brain infections are more common over there. But also, it probably represents poorer healthcare. We know that epilepsy can develop as a complication of lots of conditions, which we may well have more preventative mechanisms available here. But the reason I highlight this is it does make us wonder whether we can be more equitable with our treatments for epilepsy. Can we offer treatments that are available globally rather than just what we're getting in the first world? Because actually, the health burden is affecting the less economically developed countries even larger. And we already know in the UK and in first world countries, epilepsy is a substantial burden. So this is really just highlighting that point, and you'll see why I'm saying that in a minute. Now, I have a video here of seizures, and I think it's useful to actually demonstrate this, because often we speak about this condition, but I don't know whether people necessarily recognize just how dramatically sad it is when a person has a seizure and how dramatically challenging it is. So I'm happy to play it, although if anybody wishes for me not to, please just let me know and we can skip past that. Okay.
Really like to have epilepsy.
Sometimes this video goes green when I try and play it, and I don't know why, so I'll just see if I can open the original one.
Really like to have epilepsy. In this presentation, we're going to see some people having real epileptic seizures. All epileptic seizures reflect disturbances of normal brain activity. And conventionally, They're all classified under two main headings: focal or partial seizures, reflecting disturbances in only a small part of the brain, and generalized seizures, reflecting disturbances throughout the whole brain. We start with focal or partial seizures.
I'll just skip to partial seizures.
Complex absences occur in people with more severe forms of epilepsy. Brief interruptions of consciousness are accompanied by repeated, stereotyped jerking of the head, limbs, and trunk. If the jerks are severe, a person may be thrown off balance. Incontinence is sometimes a distressing feature of such attacks. Complex absences can be very prolonged, the jerks subsiding and diminishing in frequency only very slowly. Here's the same young man having another series of complex Clonic means stiffening, jerking, describing the two successive stages of all such attacks. Unconsciousness and stiffening of all the muscles at the onset of the attack are followed immediately by violent movements of the limbs and trunk, accompanied by labored breathing.
So this is an epilepsy center where they care for people with complex epilepsies, and it's an old video, and I think it really illustrates how dramatic and challenging it is for epilepsy, and there is no cure for epilepsy. And we have a raft of anti-seizure medications, and what these are is their symptom control. And what that means is they essentially treat somebody's seizures, but we have no way of preventing them. So, you know, we have all of these drugs that have been developed over all of these years, but still we have no cure for this condition that's affecting people really quite dramatically around the world in ways that we've seen. So we really need to have another think when it comes to epilepsy, because a lot of other conditions now have preventive methods to manage them, and actually disease modification where you can alter the course rather than treat symptoms, you know, to happen, treat symptoms as they happen. And so what we know really, what we want is prevention. Can we, you know, we have a series of dominoes that happen before you develop epilepsy. So we know some of the mechanisms by which people end up having epilepsy, and can we harness that to prevent epilepsy before it takes a hold? So it's easier to stop the dominoes falling than to pick them up once they fall, which is what all of our treatments do. Metformin, you may have heard of, is one of the most widely prescribed drugs in the world, available in the first world and in the third world, and it's used to treat diabetes. It's safe, it's affordable, it's widely used, really. It's probably the most commonly prescribed medication for diabetes worldwide. Been prescribed for decades, we know it's safe. And there is some evidence in animal models that metformin may demonstrate anti-seizure properties, and specifically seizure prevention, i.e. it may be able to prevent the onset of seizures and epilepsy in animal models. And it does that, and this is the dominoes that I was speaking about, the lead up to epilepsy. It does that by inhibiting a pathway called mTOR, which is thought to be a pathway that propagates epilepsy, and actually activating a pathway called AMPK, which in itself is thought to be protective, so neuroprotective, and helps prevent seizures and epilepsy coming on. And it's been demonstrated these effects in rodent models. But the challenge here is turning sort of science that's been generated from animal models into humans, especially for a drug that's incredibly cheap. Drug companies aren't interested in doing massive trials for really cheap drugs because they won't make money. So we have to rethink how we're going to find new drugs that may help prevent epilepsy. And drug repurposing, which is what this would be, is trying a drug that's used for something else, diabetes, to treat a completely different condition, epilepsy, based on some information that we have, which is animal models. And this is where health data comes into fruition. We have access to the world's largest health data set, and that's information routinely collected about people as they use health services, gets coded and de-identified so it's anonymous. And we can look at millions of people's data in this data set called Trinetics around the world. And what we've done is we've looked at people with newly diagnosed diabetes who commence metformin and don't commence metformin, and look at them and compare them for whether there is a difference in developing a first seizure, developing epilepsy, which is a sort of, you have to have 2 or more seizures to have epilepsy, and whether there is prevention of needing to start anti-seizure medications. And we can just do that by analyzing their data, because naturally some people in these databases who have type 2 diabetes develop epilepsy, and some of those happen not to be on metformin. And some people develop epilepsy and happen to be on metformin, and you compare the 2 groups and see whether there is a difference. And so we've looked at 45,000 of these, matched for things like age, sex, ethnicity, all the things that might unbalance comparisons between groups. And then not only that, so this is a group of people who are naive of epilepsy and naive of seizures, and we're comparing them to see whether there's a difference in getting a first ever seizure. And then what we've done is look at people who have epilepsy, and we monitor them for 5 years to see whether those who happen to be started on metformin for whatever reason had a lower incidence of having a subsequent seizure during that 5-year period compared to those who weren't exposed to metformin. So it's essentially, can we prevent epilepsy in people with diabetes? Or once epilepsy is established, is starting metformin actually alter the course by preventing a second sort of seizure? And we've looked over 5 years. And the headlines are, in people with newly diagnosed, it's for this question of, in people with newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes, is metformin associated with a reduced risk of a first seizure, epilepsy diagnosis, or anti-seizure medication prescription? Well, what we found was 582 fewer patients with this newly diagnosed diabetes experienced a first seizure in those who were managed with metformin. So they had a 1.3% reduced risk. Just under 500 progressed to develop epilepsy. So again, 1% reduced risk. So they progressed to actually get a diagnosis of epilepsy. 1% less progressed to a diagnosis of epilepsy. And about 240 fewer needed an anti-seizure medication. So that tells you that, of those exposed to metformin, far fewer people need a medication that indicates having epilepsy. Now, these numbers may seem small, but there are 1.53 million new cases of diabetes annually. If you take the US, for example, just in the US alone. So 7.65 million over the 5-year follow-up period of this study. So if we just take the US alone, which is where the majority of these data come from, initiating metformin could prevent a substantial number of 76,000 to 99,000 new cases of seizures or epilepsy in a population with type 2 diabetes. So prevent what we just saw on that screen. And then we looked at in people with epilepsies commencing metformin associated with a reduced risk of the subsequent seizures. So these people already have diagnosed epilepsy. And we saw that just over 2,000 fewer people with epilepsy aged under 55, so a young adult group, experienced a subsequent seizure over 5 years once they were established on metformin. So a 9.1% reduced risk. And this reduced risk persisted when you were over 55, although less. So it was a 3.1% reduction in risk in those aged over 55. But importantly, what this suggests is that metformin can reasonably be used or continued long-term to control seizures in an individual. If you had started it to prevent epilepsy and it didn't work and it didn't prevent epilepsy, well, actually you could continue it to try and reduce subsequent seizures, meaning you could treat it you could use it long-term. And this is just, this is the first time we've just applied metformin to a general population. It's not an animal study, and it's of course taking all the different reasons people have metformin and just bunching it all into one to see if there's a signal to suggest that in humans this could be a signal for a drug that might, for the first time ever, prevent the onset of epilepsy, and that we think this should be taken to clinical trials. Now we are trying to publish this study. Reviewers keep coming back, and this is where I think it's useful to speak to members of the public, because they come back and they say, well, it's just a small effect size, it doesn't mean anything. and this is what I put to you. I mean, have a think about this, but this is what I put to you as well. Is do you think what you've heard would be meaningless for actually the people affected by epilepsy? Because I don't think personally, I don't think they should be in a position to sort of dictate what's a substantial number of people that need to be, prevented to have epilepsy for it to be meaningful for us to disseminate the information, which is what publication is making the public aware. So at some point, I'm going to put this into a formal sort of questionnaire for people, but the sorts of questions I'll be asking is sort of the bigger picture, preventing, problems for the many. So diabetes affects millions worldwide. If a diabetes drug like metformin could prevent 99,000 people or 1,000 cases of seizures or epilepsy over 5 years in a country where there's 7.65 million cases of diabetes, do you think that's an important finding? Yes, neutral, no, not important. Preventing seizures in individuals. To prevent up to 99,000 cases of seizures or epilepsy, metformin only needs to lower the chance of someone with diabetes having a first seizure or developing epilepsy by 1.3%, because diabetes affects so many people. So it only needs to have a small effect size to actually impact a large number of people, because it's such a common condition. It's one of the most common conditions in the world. So with this in mind, do you feel a reduction of 1.3% is still an important finding for us to share with the public and other researchers? Or yes, neutral, not important. And then helping younger and older people differently. In people under 55 years old, 50% had more seizures over 5 years that they didn't take metformin, but those who took metformin, only 41.2% had more seizures, meaning that metformin reduced the risk of seizures by 9.1%. In those older than 55, the reduction was smaller at 3.1%. But do you feel metformin should still be looked at for both younger and older people? Yes, it's important. No, only in young people. Neutral, or no, not important in either. And then your thoughts on future research. Do you think we and other researchers should continue studying metformin to see if it could help prevent or treat seizures and epilepsy? Yes, definitely, maybe. No, not worth studying. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. This is where I'm at the moment. I'm going to be resubmitting it to further journals, but I thought it'd be useful to actually speak to the public, because it'll be useful to sort of just understand if you think what I'm doing is important here, because it seems journals don't think that, but I would have thought maybe members of the public think differently. I don't know. So I thought we'd just have a chat, really. Thank you. Maybe stop sharing so I can see everyone's faces.
Thank you, Gash. That was fascinating. I'm sure there's loads of questions. Did I miss you just said about the journals are not interested. Have you tried to publish this and then people have not wanted to?
So so the first journal that I went to was like Nature, one of them. So I'm trying the really big journals. Yeah. And they said they think it's good, but they think that the 1.3% or whatever
is not significant enough.
Well, it's statistically significant. So statistically it is significant. What they're saying is the impact isn't large enough.
Isn't big enough.
Numbers small. They're looking for a bigger effect size, and I'm thinking, well, it's a common condition.
Mm.
And that's why this is. Sometimes I feel like journals and clinicians try and dictate what's important to people, and they're not affected by these conditions.
Right.
But I can't just say that because I'm a researcher, and this is why I'm saying, well, shall I speak to the public and see what you guys think? If
Absolutely. I can see Hillary's hand up. Do you want to come in, Hillary?
Yes, definitely, Gash. I think, first of all, yes, definitely go to the public and get public opinion on it. And I think that would be a convincing piece, because having had a lot of experiences, this, as you know, with my grandson, he's on a very complex medication regime, which is in itself harmful, and anything that might have some sort of benefit is worth looking at. And I'm sure that people in my position and in Theo's position would feel that, absolutely. And I think you're right. Why are the journals telling us what's important?
Yeah, thank you, Hillary. Completely agree, and that's really helpful, because it gives me a little bit more of a stepping foot to respond. I think, because when we go to the next journal, I think what I'll probably say is, we've presented it to group members of the public, and there was, well, I don't know, but there was an opinion that this is something that's worth merit, and that but it may be that you know, maybe that seems to be the biggest challenge that they have with accepting this as a. But the thing is, we're not suggesting that we should just all start giving people. What we're saying is, let's make people aware of it and help other people. Once people are aware, they tend to look at things in greater detail. You know, mine's better than mine. Maybe we'll look at it then. But if they don't know about it, they don't know to look. If you see what I mean. And that's all publication is making people aware. And journals seem to be, I don't know. I think it's about impact factor and things like that they sometimes go for.
I'd be happy to help in any way, Gash. I really would.
Yeah, well, we'll probably advertise for public advisors to join the project actually at some point, because I think we actually should take it on further. And one of the things that we could do is look at a database such as the British database CPRD, and we'd need obviously grants and funding to do that. But that will allow us to look at the question more granularly than we maybe can with. But we're simply looking for a signal in the first instance.
Sandra, I think, and then Lynn, and then Becky.
I think you sort of mentioned about, you know, public involvement, and, you know, that was going to be one of my questions about, you know, the public involvement and, you know, who is funding this this research, because obviously if it's ARC, if it's university, if it's NIHR, then you have to have public involvement from the very beginning. I'm looking at Selena. And then I think sometimes maybe again when you're trying to get it published, the fact that you've got this public engagement as well. But we were having a discussion yesterday, and I'm still a little bit lost at the comment meeting about journals and about publications and about costs and about, in the days gone by, apparently it used to be on the what was the word, Ruth, the benefit of the research, whereas now it's about sort of costs and things, and it's about, you know, if you do put into you know, another research project, putting into it a cost for the publication. But yeah, I think, you know, like I say, public involvement, you know, you've got to have it. It's not really up for debate, as we all say, apparently.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, important thing to reflect on. And I think that the challenge, I suppose, as you say, is at the moment it's unfunded, and it'd be great to get it funded. And actually, it probably would be great to start to apply for funding once we've got public advisors on something like this, because it's so left field for people to think you might use a diabetes drug in epilepsy that you need everyone supporting the idea, and that will include researchers and members of the public. And I think I'm starting to see that signal now. So you're quite right. I think actually for the next steps, and this is actually why I've registered it as an ARC project. And I thought the first thing is to present it at the PA forum, see if people are interested, and if so, then start to apply for actual.
And I think also, sorry, I was just going to say about, you know, when you mentioned it's about you know, a cheap medication. So, you know, if you got research, then it could eventually maybe go to NICE, and you know, you're looking at, you know, NICE looking about costings and quality, and so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
you. Lynn?
Thank you. That was so interesting, Gash. Thank you very much for that. I'm wondering, did your research cover at all about the impact, the indirect impact? I'm thinking particularly about, it's a very distressing thing to see somebody having a fit. So the impact on families, and not just families, but anyone who comes into contact, it's a very distressing thing. And so it's not obviously absolutely critical to help these people, but whether there's anything that you can emphasize about the impact being greater than just on the individuals that are having it.
That's a really good point, actually. And maybe what I'll do, although I can't directly measure that, I wonder whether I can bring in the discussion to say that prevention not only stops the physicality of seizures, but actually the wider impact of epilepsy on a family's dynamics and carers and everything else. So actually it's likely to have a substantial economic burden for actually being a very cheap drug. You know, so if you can prevent it in the first place, there should be a substantial impact not only on healthcare, but on the wider outcomes, which are sort of socioeconomic and carer burden, all this. So that's a really good point. Thank you. I'll add that to the discussion. Thank you.
Brilliant. I'm just conscious that we are running out of time, so I'm going to ask Oh, there's 4 people with their hands up now, so just try and do it as quickly as you can. I don't want to shut the discussion down. Becky, like 1 minute each or something. Becky?
Yeah, so I don't have that non-epileptic attack disorder, which is similar but different. Sort of say from someone who has seizures, it's on the individual as well is so important because it like to watch, but it's so terrifying the fact that you can just go anywhere you are. So I definitely think people with seizures would be very on board to try new ways of sort of and trying to not overcome them, but you know what I mean, like avenues.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's really incredibly helpful to share. And some of the challenges is you do find people who have dissociative seizures or non-epileptic attacks or functional seizures, whichever term that are used for them, are put on medications, and some of them
on pregabalin.
Yeah, and some of them can be quite toxic sometimes, and you wonder whether, you know, rationalizing medications and things like that. And part of, I guess, the benefit of something like this is a drug that's really well tolerated and has very little in the way of side effects. So you know, it's worth noting that. Thank you for sharing that. Incredibly.
Thank you. Peter, you got your 1 minute.
Oh God, how do I get this into 1 minute? By getting on with it. Two things, Josh, on this. One is on the sort of more technical side. You were sort of indicating that it was the journals who were rejecting the stuff. It wasn't the journals, it was the reviewers. So presumably you've got reviewer feedback. And when you're in the 1% area of stuff, was there an issue here about the error term in terms not of the outcomes that you're saying are very small? That's a different question. But in terms of what you were finding, a 1% outturn, unless the data is incredibly robust, I know it's a big sample. So was there feedback on that you need to share?
So the confidence intervals are very, very narrow because we've got such large numbers.
It's the numbers.
So actually, yeah, so we've got such large numbers that although it's a 1%, 1.3%, it's a very robust 1.3%.
So the reviewers didn't have a problem with that, I presume?
No, so they were happy that it was a true effect, but they were just not happy that it was a substantial effect.
That seems to me odd in a way. If it's a true effect, it's a true effect. Okay, then on the other side of it, for my last half minute, there's a whole opportunity cost framework here. But the other question that would be raised is if this has got such a small effect, you could be doing other things in other areas that have bigger effects. So the downstream story, you'll know from the work that I did with Adam about care homes and my wife's mini seizures, right? So, and the costs of that, even that, in terms of A&E, call-outs, block beds, all the rest of it, actually are part of the wider package. So if it's robust enough technically, if you say that's what you say, then it seems to me there's an argument for a paper that actually addresses head-on the small effects problem. Here I have a project that's got small effects, but very important ones. On the opportunity cost side, all the other costs, the sort of thing that's been raised earlier, that's where I think you might want to go large in a resubmission to the other downstream costs, with which, of course, public advisors and other professionals could help. That's my minute.
No, that's incredibly insightful, and I think I will add that, and I think that echoes sentiments from an earlier comment as well. And it made me wonder, actually, because you see, one of the things that I did was I looked at the effect in the general population of people with diabetes, but I'm curious if I looked at subgroups of people who are very high risk of epilepsy, so people with brain tumors or stroke or other things, we may find that actually the effect size becomes much larger because you're taking out the people who have a much less chance of having epilepsy, and you're capturing the people with very large chance of having epilepsy. So these subgroups may have a larger side, impact, and it is probably something I could look at. Actually, that's a good point.
I think we do probably need to move on. I think Ali had her hand up, but I don't. Did you have your hand up, Ali? You're on mute.
I did, but my brain was obviously going down exactly the same road as Peter. So that's what I was asking as well, was around what the reviewer comments were. And have you, obviously sometimes reviewer comments, as I know in terms of publications, sometimes reviewers' comments are very relevant. Sometimes they are really, well, I don't know how to put this properly, but a bit niche in as much as they haven't really understood the project. So was there any benefit, as Peter was speaking to, in effectively a slight rebrand, for want of a better word, of the research to resubmit?
Yeah, so I am going to resubmit, and I thought there are bits that I probably need to iron out before I do that. And I wanted for us to get a public feel from the public about, am I barking down the wrong tree here? And I think I've got the fire in my belly that I'm not barking up the wrong tree. And so that's useful. And then we are still going for high impact journals. So we recently submitted to one called Nature Metabolism, which is like the big Nature diabetes one. And they gave really nice feedback actually to say that, well, it's probably not one for general medicine, a general diabetes journal like theirs, but rather one for one they call Nature Communications, which is still really high impact. And they suggested we transfer it over. So, but before I do that, I wanted to kind of maybe see if I can anticipate another comment like that coming, and maybe do some of the subgroup things that have been mentioned. And then I think once that's published, once that paper's out, then a wider project seeking funding with us and public advisors on board and everything else will be really, really good. And we would have then the backing of a paper that's published to say, actually, there's a bit of signal with metformin. Can we start now looking at this in a more granular way?
Right. I'm really sorry, Gash, because I think it's been fascinating.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'm sure you've mentioned in the paper about like that worldwide stuff and about those lower and middle income countries and the effect that they could have there as well. But I just think some of the comments about the different kind of outcomes that maybe you haven't thought about could also add weight to it. So yeah, loads of comments in the chat, I think. So brilliant.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.
And come back and let us know how you get on, and we want to hear about the next funding bid for it. So thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm very grateful, guys. And I'm gonna have to move on just because I'm actually in a virtual funeral today.
I'm sorry to hear that, and we'll be thinking of you.
Thanks.
Right, we shall move on. Muted myself. We shall move on to our new public advisor story. So we've got Becky. Her connection has been a little bit wobbly, so I'm just hoping we can hear her okay. And so are you there, Becky?
Yeah, Ruth me to try turning off the camera to see if that improves it. So that's why.
Perfect. I think it sounds a little bit better, so give it a try, and
Okay.
I'll shout out if we can't hear you at all.
Thank
you.
I made a little presentation for it just because it can't even handle a camera so I don't have high hopes. So my name's Becky. I'm 26 and of this I'm a disabled carer. I did pick a struggle, so that's a fun little note. And I volunteer at the bank. I ended up joining as a way to engage in to talk to people that I don't live with, because they're quite isolating. So it's fun convo. At Blackburn Food Bank, I'm predominantly a call handler where you try and the information on food preferences, their individual circumstances, things like that, but I often do hobble off to do other things when I get bored. So the research I'm a public advisor for regards food bank clients' views food insecurity. The definition we're using is not having enough money to access food, and this was just circulated at the food bank, so that's how I found out that exciting of a story. Oh, Jesus Christ. Sorry, me laptop try and give me a seizure. So yes. Sorry, I can't see anything.
Are you okay, Becky? Are you all right to carry on, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I just yeah, don't worry. I don't know what it's doing.
Okay. We can still hear you.
Yeah, I just can't see anything, but it's fine. I joined because I felt really passionate about it, that it was a way to the clients, and you know, we so often speak for them in their trying to, you know, just get a wee little bit of info for, you know, our what's the word? Like, it's called Reason for Crisis, so it's why they're using the food bank, what's led them here, to sort of help them have an opportunity to, what would hopefully lead to destigmatization of, I mean, we're constantly seeing more and more, you know, we're seeing such a range of age and all sorts of situations. So it's just, yeah, it's just a means they're sort of a part of a solution, and they're hoping that people will engage in further research outside of Lancashire, then be able to be used in governance. We're currently transcribing the interviews and beginning to record them. We'll be gathering the participants again to show them the findings, what they've all sort of broadly said, to gain further insight into that. So yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Becky. It sounds like a really important project, and so we don't always hear those sort of voices, do we? So I'm really pleased to hear about that. Ruth has just put in the chat that, you know, we can, if you, I think you mentioned you maybe had a presentation that you couldn't show, so we can send that round so that everyone can see it, and maybe we can hear a bit more about it as you know, as you go through with doing the analysis and hearing a bit more about the project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have a presentation from Dr. Sarah Donegan about the accuracy of diagnostic tests in evidence synthesis. Are you here, Sarah?
I'm here. Hi.
Fab.
Hi. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for inviting me to the forum today, because I haven't got loads of PPI experience. So I've really enjoyed, you know, being part of the forum and finding out more about yourselves and the kind of what you do. So that's been fascinating. Thank you very much. So I've actually recorded my presentation today because I know it's 10 minutes. Otherwise, I could talk for, you know, a good few hours on this, because so I'll just start my recording now. But let me know if there's any sound issues.
Brilliant. Thank you. It's not playing yet, Sarah.
Okay, the sound hasn't worked on that. Do you know how to share? Maybe I need to share sound.
When you click on
it.
There should be an option to share that says, when you click your share button, there should be an option that says,
oh yeah, sorry, it's my fault. I've not done
sound.
Share sound. I've not done it properly, have I? Sorry. Share screen. Yeah. Right, this should work now.
Good.
Tell me if it's not working.
Okay.
You're sharing the screen. There we go. Now the second time lucky, let's hope. Go back to the beginning. There we go. Hi, my name's Sarah Donegan. I'm a statistician.
It's a little bit quiet.
So I'm going to talk today about comparing.
Can you turn it up a bit?
I'm going to try. Sorry, let me just see if I can turn up my volume, if that works better. We're gonna just okay, try now. Okay. Sorry.
Right.
Hi, my name's Sarah Donegan and I'm a statistician at University of Liverpool. So I'm going to talk today about comparing the accuracy of tests in reviews, and I'd really appreciate some feedback because I'm thinking of putting in a funding application. Systematic reviews aim to answer a research question by finding all the studies that have been carried out on the topic, and then the review will combine the findings to provide an overall conclusion or an overall result based on all of the studies. So meta-analysis is a method that's used in reviews to combine the results or findings of studies, and it produces an overall average result. So you can think of it as combining all of the results from all the studies together to give an overall average result from across the studies. And systematic reviews and meta-analyses are often used to decide which treatments or tests the NHS would use. But what do I mean by treatments and tests? Well, treatments are given to patients to treat or prevent a particular disease. For example, we may use aspirin to treat a headache, whereas tests are used to diagnose a disease. For example, rapid diagnostic tests were used to diagnose COVID during the COVID outbreak. So those are the home-based tests. Meta-analysis methods used for to compare tests are different to the methods that are used to compare treatments. So meta-analysis that compares treatments combines comparative studies, by which I mean studies that have got 2 or more groups of patients with each group given a different treatment. And by including just those types of studies, it avoids bias. So that means that we should get a correct meta-analysis result at the end of it. We shouldn't get a biased incorrect result. Whereas meta-analysis comparing tests combines the comparative studies, so that's the studies that have got patients that are given 2 or more of the tests, but they also combine non-comparative studies, by which I mean studies where there's only one group of patients given one test. But including non-comparative studies in a meta-analysis could potentially cause bias. So the methods also differ in other respects. So meta-analysis methods comparing treatments uses contrast-based meta-analysis. And using contrast-based meta-analysis helps to avoid bias. Whereas meta-analysis comparing tests uses arm-based meta-analysis. Now, arm-based meta-analysis, when it's been used to compare treatments, has proven to be biased. So there is some research that's been carried out to show arm-based methods are biased when comparing treatments. But we don't know whether arm-based methods produce reliable results for comparing tests or not, because there's not been any research on that. There are 2 types of meta-analysis methods for comparing treatments. They're called pairwise meta-analysis or network meta-analysis. Now, pairwise meta-analysis has been around for many decades. Network meta-analysis has revolutionised how treatments are compared over the last 2 decades since its invention. And for the last 2 decades, there's been a huge amount of clinical and methodological research carried out comparing treatments. But it's a completely different story about meta-analysis comparing tests. So when we compare tests, there's been various methods that have been proposed and used, but in my opinion, none of the methods are fit for purpose. So there's issues with all of the methods, but different issues. So some of the methods can't compare more than 2 tests. Some of the methods have statistical flaws, so they may produce incorrect results. So this means that there's great potential for research development in this area to develop meta-analysis methods that can compare tests and give reliable results, and to evaluate the methods to make sure they're giving kind of correct results. So the methods to compare interventions cannot just be used to compare tests without adapting them, because it's more complicated to compare tests than it is to compare treatments. To explain what I mean by a pairwise meta-analysis, So a pairwise meta-analysis comparing treatments can compare only 2 treatments. So you can think of it as like a pair of scales. It's weighing up 2 treatments to see which one is the best treatment. Is it treatment 1 or treatment 2? And usually we would, a pairwise meta-analysis would combine only comparative studies of the 2 treatments. So that's randomized controlled trials that have randomized patients to treatment 1 or treatment 2. And it's just comparing these 2 treatments. Now, a pairwise meta-analysis can't produce a result. It can't tell us which is the best treatment if there's no studies that have been carried out comparing these 2 treatments. Whereas a network meta-analysis can compare many treatments at the same time, so any number of treatments. So in this example, I've called it treatments 1, 2, and 3. So it can weigh up all of the treatments in one analysis, and it can rank them from the best treatments to the worst treatments. So I thought you could maybe think of this as like a machine with lots of different scales. So it's weighing up treatment 1 and 2 to see which is the best, it's weighing up treatment 2 and 3 to see if it's the best, and it's weighing up treatments 1 and 3 to see which is the best. So it's doing all this at the same time. So the network meta-analysis combines comparative studies of 2 or more of the treatments. So it may be that studies compare treatments 1 and 2. It may be the studies are comparing and allocating treatments 1 and 3, or it could be studies that are allocating treatments 2 and 3 to patients, or it can even be studies of treatments 1, 2, and 3 in the same study. So, but the most important fact about network meta-analysis, and the thing that has caused this total revolution in the way we compare treatments, is because when we use a network meta-analysis, we can actually compare 2 treatments that have never been compared in studies. So that's a very important fact. So in terms of the future research that I'm hoping to be able to do, I'm hoping to develop new methods that can compare tests, and then to evaluate them to make sure they give correct results, and then to promote the methods to make sure that the methods are used and to help people to use. So to prove I can actually do the work, I have already done some preliminary research. I've developed some new pairwise meta-analysis models and network meta-analysis models that can combine comparative and non-comparative results, and there's no statistical flaws in the models. But so far, I've only applied the methods to one example data set, so one situation, and that was looking at applying them to compare rapid diagnostic tests for diagnosing malaria. So I wanted to receive trying to get hold of some funding so that I can apply the methods that I've invented to lots of different data sets, so all different real reviews in all different diseases and different situations, and also some simulated data, so that I can fully evaluate the methods I've invented to see whether they're useful methods that give reliable results. So questions that I'll be trying to answer during the future research is, should we be using ARM-based meta-analysis models or contrast-based meta-analysis models? Should we be including these non-comparative studies or not? Are they introducing bias? And what are the benefits of the network meta-analysis for comparing tests? So we know there's lots of benefits of network meta-analysis for comparing treatments, but are the same benefits seen for comparing tests? And then I'm hoping to develop some software that will help people apply the methods more easily and promote these new methods as well. I have been working with a public advisor already on a related funding application and the preliminary research. So she's given some feedback on the plain language summary, and I'm going to involve her as a co-author on the preliminary research. I don't have a great deal of experience with PPIE, but I was thinking I would have a lead public advisor and an advisory group. So the lead advisor would represent the group of maybe 5 people. Everyone would receive training. And then the lead advisor would be the co-author on the research outputs and more closely involved in the research design, the research conduct, and the research dissemination, so more actively involved in the advisory group. And then we would hold, the lead advisor and myself would hold workshops for the advisory group to get more wider feedback about the research plans, the research results, and how to disseminate the results. And we're also going to obviously track impacts using an evaluation tool. I've got these from the NHR website, but I've never used any. I don't know which is useful to use. I was thinking that we'd probably be producing maybe some videos explaining some of the work, and that would be one way to share the plans, the research plans and findings. And I'm hoping to write a research article on our PPI experience, because I think in PPI involvement in statistical methods research is quite novel. I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening, and I'd really appreciate your questions or feedback either now or email me anytime if you have any questions or feedback or would like to get involved. Thank you again.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. That was really interesting, and it's probably a really hard topic to try and to present about like that. So we haven't got a huge amount of time, but if there is anyone that wants to jump in and make any quick comments, stick your hands up now. Otherwise, I think there's a couple of little bits in the chat, and also, as Sarah said, you can email her. So just to see if there's anyone.
I think Hillary Garrett.
Hi, Hillary.
Go, Hillary.
Hiya. Just a question, really, Sarah. In terms of the tests, are you? Could you just be a bit more specific about what you mean by tests? By tests.
Yeah, it's kind of any kind of diagnostic test. So obviously we just use them for absolutely everything, don't we? So we have pregnancy tests, we have blood tests, we have urine tests for all different types of conditions. So everything really.
I thought you were meaning that, but would it be looking at the same test as well as different types of tests, the same test but delivered or conducted in different places? I'll tell you where I'm coming from in this. When Rob was first diagnosed with, he's got a nasty autoimmune condition, and when he was first diagnosed with it, if he had his blood tests analysed at Preston, he got a different result from the ones that he had analysed through Burnley.
Oh, right, that's odd, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, it must be something to do with the way they kind of it must be interpreting the results differently in different hospitals. That's interesting. But I mean, it would be really from what's been done in studies. So studies may look at, blood samples, I don't know, different samples taken from different places, but I don't know if the studies would be done looking at some, differences across different hospitals. But yeah, I mean, if the studies had been done, then we can do, I can compare that in a mesh analysis, certainly. But it's an interesting point. Thank you.
Thanks. I think it's. I just did put a comment in the chat as well. I think your PPIE plan looks really good.
Oh, thank you.
And I love that you've put those different forms of impact tracking as well.
I don't know which one's useful. I thought I'm just going to go with what the PPI people, the public advisors recommend, really. So I'm not sure which is.
I think it's really. I think it's a really good thing to keep it open like that. To be quite honest, that's my feeling. That's just my personal opinion.
Thank you.
And I'm also happy to have a chat about it, Sarah. We've been encouraging the researchers at ARC to use the GRIP too, but I know we do mention the other ones as well. So I'm happy to have a conversation if it's helpful as well.
Very much.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks again. And we've got 5 minutes left of the meeting, and we've got 3 subgroups to feed back. So instead of giving 5 minutes each, you'll have to have like a minute or 2 each, otherwise we'll be here for over the time. So I think we first of all got governance. Who's feeding back on governance? Was it Hina?
Hina, yeah.
Hello everyone. I'm from the governance subgroup.
Are you there, Hina?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I'm from the governance subgroup, and just wanted to update you on how our lovely group has helped in the plain English summary for the ARC bit 2. So yeah, they've helped with that, and they're planning to have like an event at the end of ARG for recognizing all the achievement for public advisors. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hina, and well done for summarising everything in a minute. Someone from HEMS, is it Neil or somebody else?
Neil.
Are you there, Neil?
Sorry, yes, I am. I was putting in the chat. Mine is very brief. Thank you for allowing me to present. For our new public advisors, because we should be mindful of acronyms, HEMS stands for the Health Equity Mainstreaming Strategy, which is looking at not only health inequalities, but probably the more important and pressing points about equity. So on November the 27th, our PAs and Dr. Katerina Panyaki were invited to Blackpool Football Club for a full-day event, which was hosted by the Health Determinants Research Collaboration UK, and we took our Snakes and Ladders game of health inequalities, lots of quizzes, postcards asking participants to look at health inequalities and possible solutions in their own locality. We had over 140 people engaged coming through our own room, which was the trophy room of Blackpool, and it was just an outstanding day. And it's something that we originally done about 3 or 4 years ago in Liverpool, Lancaster, and Preston. So if you do get a chance, if we get this opportunity to hold this day again, please do come along. You will love it. You will meet some wonderful partners. So yeah, thanks and welcome to the new PAs. Becky, that presentation was outstanding, really. It's something I'm so interested in, the cost of poverty and food insecurity. So thanks, everybody.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Neil. That sounds really interesting, that day. I don't think I even knew about it, so we need to make sure we hear about it, hear about them, so we can come along and see all the great work you're doing. And the last person to feedback is, I think, Sandra from Comms.
Yes, it's me. Right, I'll rattle through dead quick. You're going to be receiving an email about ArcFest and what you thought about it. And not being biased, but I'd like you to say how wonderful myself and Steve and Terry were. Moving on quickly, we always talk about the website and the increased number of users. And if you have any feedback to Sean. The comms group, myself and Jamie, are going to be holding a staff comms online training event where they can come along and literally just ask any questions about comms. So we don't know what they're going to ask or not ask. The comms team are always looking for feedback from blogs, from impact, information for the newsletters. So, always welcome. For those of you that are on Twitter or X, we now have also a Blue Sky account, which we're going to use alongside and see how that goes. We produced a trifold leaflet. It's about, what do you need to do to be a public advisor, the support groups, what we do. And at the next PA forum, about training in applying for opportunities, training templates for old and new PAs to articulate their skills and experiences, and that's me.
Oh, well done, Sandra. It really was a whistle tour, wasn't it? I thought it was a fascinating forum, I think. Thank you so much, everyone. I was like, every time we have a forum, I'm like, oh, maybe this won't be as good, but it was fantastic and great to see so many people come in, and we even finished on time. It's 2 o'clock, so absolutely perfect. Thank you, everyone. I did just put a note in the chat that we did record this meeting, and I do think it's been a really good one, so I think it'll be good to put it up on YouTube. If anyone isn't happy, let me know, and we can always edit bits out as well if needed. So yeah, get in touch, and we'll send that message out before we do anything to anyone that's left early as well. So thank you everyone, and just have a brilliant day and the rest of the week, and we'll see you hopefully at the next forum or at an ARC Fest or somewhere. And if anyone needs to, just get in touch with me or Ruth about anything PPIE related. And take care. Have a great afternoon.
Bye everybody.
Big
Bye.
thanks to
everybody. Thank you for
Ruth
being with us
for
for
doing
tech.
everything.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.